Space Marine 2 is an amazing game, but there's plenty the tutorial doesn't teach you. From finding amazing hidden items to the best way to use a Guardian Relic, I collected my biggest moments that made me say, I wish I knew that sooner. The first piece of advice I have for you is the single biggest headache I had after I finally crushed the enemies of the Imperium and beat the game. I realized there's 0 difficulty related achievements for the campaign. Because I don't look up secret achievements until after I beat a game, I played through on the veteran difficulty to get myself used to the game for a future Angel of Death playthrough, only to realize there's no need. Since you can't change the difficulty mid-mission, make sure you choose accordingly something that's going to be the most fun for you. Don't stress and struggle and hate it just for the sake of a bleep bloop, because there won't be one. But no matter what difficulty you play on, eventually you're going to get taken down, inflicted with a mortal wound, and have to reload a checkpoint. In campaign and operations, you can start finding Guardian Relics, which will let you self-resurrect yourself when you go down. So, you don't need your battle brothers to risk their lives picking you back up. But you don't want to just blow these things the first time you go down. In fact, I'll tell you, I don't think you should ever manually use this thing outside of a 1% situation. Because the best part about the Guardian Relic is that when you have a mortal wound and go down with it, it will automatically use itself and reset your mortal wound count to whatever the default for your current difficulty is. So keep your finger off of that F key and pay attention to these next tips, which are to help you avoid this situation in the first place. The game tells you that perfect parries are amazing, which they are. What wasn't clear to me and my friends at first though, is that you can parry, and even perfect dodge enemies with no blue markers showing up. In fact, realizing this after loads of struggle in the game was the single biggest gameplay improvement to me. Horde of Gaunts swarming you? Parry. That warrior spamming you? Keep parrying. It'll keep you alive a lot longer, and some enemies will get killed and set you up for ranged execution attempts. The only time you can't parry is when there's a red marker. That's just dodge or bust. But what if you're about to run out of armor and surrounded? What took me too long to realize is that just spamming heavy attacks on light enemies such as Gaunts can be amazing armor recovery spam. Assuming they have full health, you'll knock several of them back and get a ranged execution that will instantly restore an armor bubble. You can only have a single ranged execute up, so you need to attack, execute if you're in a dangerous situation. But this alone has saved my life countless times now. Another good way, useful at the start of engagement, is the running attack. If you hit light enemies, you'll almost always get an execute out of it, so you can restore that armor you might have lost from the ranged attacks pelting you while you were busy closing the gap. But we need to keep our teammates in mind, not just ourselves. You need to make sure during combat that you're routinely checking your HUD and communicating with your team at all times about statuses if possible. These health bars here on the side will show if someone in your team has armor or not. So if you know you're shoulder to shoulder with your battle brother, you have armor left and they don't, when that enemy drops into execute territory, shout it out and move on to a new target. Keeping everyone healthy is the Emperor approved thing to do here and will get you to success faster. In order to keep others healthy, we also need to check our fire. While the game doesn't have friendly fire in a traditional sense and your allies will just scold you and tank the bullets, you can do some bad stuff to your allies. Grenades can and will absolutely knock your fellow Astartes around, staggering them out of animations even. I also found out the hard way the other day that even while taking to the air with a jetpack, I could get staggered down to the ground. There's absolutely still times a well-placed frag when you're being swarmed by 50 nids or a crack on a hard target is warranted. At least call it out so they know it's about to happen and don't unload your entire high explosive arsenal onto them. It is worth noting that while friendly fire isn't a thing, self-destruction absolutely is. It didn't seem to be a problem the first day or so I was playing, but I found out a bit later that it seemed to be a glitch and was hotfixed when I accidentally deleted myself with a melt-a-bomb. Oopsie. So watch yourself with those shocks and meltas. But with all that firepower, we need plenty of loot to carry the fight to the Xenos and Heretic scum, so we need to keep an eye out. It took me way too long to realize that in addition to the loot that's laying around in the open, there's actually these green ammo crates that unfortunately blend in with everything. You can dodge through them to break them. They often contain things like ammo, grenades, stims, and even the rarer armor boosts. Just be sure to communicate with your team about loot, and you can even use tab to bring up the auspex and see who's carrying what for stims, since all of this loot is shared. There's typically only 2 armor boosts at a time, so be sure to prioritize your Vanguard and Sniper Battle Brothers, since they only have 2 armor, and it maxes out your armor entirely at 4. Armor boosts also instantly start recharging your armor, so if you have some in a combat arena, you can save it for a desperate fight moment to help turn the tide back in your favor. Up next, we're going to be talking about operations-specific tips, tricks, and advice. And a bit later down the line, I'll be diving deep on class advice, my experiences, and favorite builds for them. So be sure to keep an eye on the channel for future Space Marine 2 content and click that subscribe button before you go.